Thank you, Charm Foundation, for just coming alongside me in my leadership. I mean, 17 years I've been working with them, and I've been in this position for 23. And the first five were so hard. I was elected in a community and in a position where it wasn't commonplace that women lead, and it was determined that I was going to be a one-term supervisor. And I've outlived everybody and pretty much won everybody over that was determined not to see me succeed, and all for the benefit of my community. And so I am so honored and humbled to be able to be here and share with you today. And I'm going to do something I was going to say a little bit different, but a lot different. And that there's no PowerPoint, there's no script. I'm just going to share with you what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now, my experience, strength, and hope, in hopes that my journey is something that either you can relate to or somebody that you are close to, that it serves you. And so the story I'm telling myself comes from somebody said, Brene Brown, she's my spirit animal. This woman is amazing, right? And it was in one of her YouTube videos and in her books that she talked about getting real with the story I'm telling myself, and the power of holding pondering space for our own internal conflicts. Um, Really what today's about is for me sharing with you my battle with the imposter syndrome, and that critical voice in my head that has worked nonstop to try and beat me down and keep me really, really small. And so in talking about that, like uncovering the ways you are unknowingly biased, right? Unfairly prejudiced, a preconceived opinion that it's not based on reason, having or showing a dislike against yourself. Um, and so this morning, I was inspired to share a story with you. That's actually in my book. And if any of my stories today like intrigue you, like the crazier, and I swear to God, the craziest version, right, is in my book, Messages of the Monarch. And so I'm actually doing my book launch on my birthday on May 27th. So if any of you are inspired on that day, put it on your calendar. And if you purchase the book that day, you'll be helping with my birthday present to make it a number 1 bestseller as well. Uh, so back in 2007, I received an award for the YWCA Lake County Leader of the Year award. And when they called to inform me that I had won the award, they the gal shared with me that I would have 2 minutes to share, my, whatever I wanted to say. And if I could send that to her, and I was like, well, you can just jot it down right now. She's like, okay, what would you like to say? I was like, thank you. She's like, excuse me? I was like, thank you. That's what I'd like to say. And she was like, no, you don't understand. This talk is going to be on our website for a very long time. So I'd really like for you to put a little bit of thought into it. So I took it seriously, and I put together this talk. And um I was working with my publishing coach, and she was like, Cheri, that talk like encapsulates like where you came from, and it really was powerful. And so this morning it was like, well, maybe I'll just start with that. And so in my 2 minutes, I got up, I said, thank you. And special thanks to everyone who came to support me tonight. Marianne Williamson in A Return to Love wrote, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small doesn't serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. You were meant to shine as children do. We were born to manifest the glory of God within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we're liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So I shared that's what this is about tonight. God using you to liberate me from my fear, to accept that he needs me to stand up and shine so that others will be liberated to stand up and shine too. I don't believe that I was commissioned to do great things. What I do believe is that I was commissioned to take one courageous step at a time, one day at a time, by accepting the fact that I was an alcoholic and getting help, by deciding not to get an abortion in college and face the shame, only to find that my son, Billy, was one of the most incredible gifts I could ever receive, by finishing college one day at a time, one class at a time, and all the other steps I took, including running for Zion Township supervisor, knowing that my past would be used against me, taking the next step anyway, with my trembling fingers held assuringly in the hand of my God, watching as he took those mistakes and magically turned them into life lessons. This award has forced me to stop, to turn around and see that great things have happened. This award and the women who wrote letters of recommendation for me were all mirrors to show me who I am. My own mirror never revealed that. The best part of being a community leader is when I too can hold up a mirror for others to see. My daughter, Brittany, on her voicemail reminds callers that if you believe it, you can achieve it. The most amazing thing about that statement is you don't even have to fully believe it. You just have to believe it enough to tell someone so they can support you. Tonight, my prayer, dear Lord, is that this dinner will serve as a catalyst. And by supporting each other, we will let go of our fear of the light and tap into our power beyond measure. And that we will indeed change the world. Thank you. So I shared that with this group, right? And thank you. And it was so profound. I was scared to death because I realized that I had just like told like all of my stuff, right, in front of this room full of tuxedos and and like I look over at my parents thinking that they're going to be like, oh, what did she just do? And the whole room is standing applauding, and they are too, and that they could be proud of me for my experience, strength, and hope was the most powerful thing. And just to share with you, in the recovery program I'm in, they practice. That's where I got to learn about servant leadership. We are but trusted servants. We do not govern. And so for 38 years, I've gotten to practice some principles that have helped me in my leadership in ways that I never even imagined that they would. But my journey with the imposter syndrome, right? When I started going to the recovery meetings, and I got a therapist, and the therapist shared with me verbal abuse. I'd never heard of verbal abuse. I knew physical abuse if there were bruises, right? But and I went home and I started paying attention to the way that my father spoke to me and my siblings. And finally, after some time, I got the courage to reach out to my dad. I was like, Dad, can I ask you a question? He was like, what's that? I was like, why do you constantly point out everything that's wrong with us? And he was like, what do you mean, why do I do it? It's because I love you. I was like, wait, you point out everything that's wrong with us because you love us? I thought you did it because you hated us. He was like, well, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. I was like, interesting. I was like, the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life is that somebody would constantly point out what's wrong with you and call that love. Well, to be honest, that wasn't the worst abuse that I ever experienced. Because what I had been enduring my entire life was a much more critical voice that was in my own head, that was constantly beating me up, constantly. I remember, so one of the crazy stories that you'll read is that I was the first girl to drive a snowplow for the Illinois Department of Transportation. And I didn't do that because I like grew up like wanting to drive trucks, right? I did that because I was a single mom and I was working 3 jobs and I couldn't pay my bills. And I found out how much that job paid. And I would have done, I don't care what the work was, right? If I could work one job and stay home with my son, I was going to do it. And so one night I'm driving the snowplow and I had to talk into the radio. And so I hung it up, and now I was the only girl. So everybody in the whole world knew, like when my voice came on the radio, who it was, right? And I got off the radio and I beat the pulp out of myself for what I said or didn't even say, right? And so the only way I could get my sanity, now picture we're on 12-hour shifts driving these trucks and pushing the snow. And I had to concoct this like boardroom table in my mind. And I put like Jesus and different people that like I know adore me around the table to stand up to this voice in my head because he was beating the crud out of me. I don't even know, like in living it with that, how I ended up making it through actually running for elected office, except for that I kept working my recovery, right? And ironically, my opponent came to me, and he was the incumbent. He'd been here in office 16 years, and he reached out to me and he said, "Cheri, I've got some information on you, and I'm going to use it." And I said to him, I said, you know what? I said, we should probably go for coffee. And he was like, for what? You're not going to talk me out of it. I'm like, oh, no, no, I don't want to talk you out of it. I want to share the rest of it. He was like, what? I was like, that's why I think I would be so good in my position, is because of where I've been, that I think it could really help some of the people in the community to do that. Well, he didn't use a word of it. And having the courage to be able to stand up despite the voice in my head was huge. And I attended a luncheon with Stedman Graham. And at this luncheon, Stedman, who's Oprah's other half, he shared that the most incredible thing that Oprah ever did wasn't her TV show, and wasn't the school, and wasn't the books and the movies. He said the most incredible thing Oprah ever did was to overcome that voice in her head that told her she was nothing. Now, I like literally gasped when he said this. And I looked around the room and everybody's nodding their head. I'm like, wait, everybody's got this jerk in their head, right? And Oprah overcame the voice, and she's been able to do everything she's been able to do. And in that moment, I like literally drew a line in the sand. I was like, this voice is not going to stop me anymore. And so I started like seeking out ways to combat the voice and overcome whatever I was trying to, whatever I knew in my heart I was that I was to do, but that the judge tried to stop me. And one of the most incredible opportunities I got was with Cheri Miller. Cheri actually invited me to a Vistage in Chicago. And at that presentation, very short period of time, this guy talked about this book. Hang on. This book, The Power of Ted. And I took notes and I did and forgot about it. And like a month later, I woke up in the middle of the night and was thinking about this book. And I don't remember doing it, but a few days later, this book came in the mail. So I must have in the middle of the night gone on my phone and ordered it. But I got the book, and you can see it's like chewed up. It was everything to help me. And it talks about, instead of being the victim of our life, being the creator of our life. And instead of letting people be my persecutors, just let them be my challengers and not take it personal. And instead of being a rescuer and trying to rescue people, just be their coach and let them take personal responsibility for their own life. Well, that like helped to like give me some tools to combat the critical voice in my head. He was still loud and strong, but at least I had something. And one of the other practices I have every year is I go to the Global Leadership Summit. And just so you know, all of the references, it'll all be on the handout that I have, so you don't have to like I list all that out for you. But so the Global Leadership Summit is in August each year in North Barrington. It is the most phenomenal 2-day event. And at this event, the COO of Facebook, Sheryl Sandberg, announced to the place that she too suffered from the imposter syndrome. And she put words to what it was. And she shared that statistics are that 70% of people struggle with the imposter syndrome, but she thinks it's closer to 90%. So what I'm guessing is that there might be 15% of the people on this call that this totally doesn't resonate with. And just I hope you enjoy it anyway. But the rest of you, I really hope that this gives you some tools to be able to become your most authentic self, overcoming the voice. So the imposter syndrome, right? The definition is, and I'm reading this, the persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has legitimately been achieved as a result of one's own efforts or skills. I'm just curious in the chat room if you could just share, like, if this applies to you. Do you have any, like, just yay, thumbs up, sort of, never? How many of you, like, can relate to this? Okay, now I'm getting choked up again. Um, thank you for that validation, one. And I've always known that Charmed was my tribe, and you guys are just further proving that, like, you guys are so my family. Um, yeah. Oh, okay, thank you for that. So, it was January of 2021 when I literally wrote in my journal, like, I am so tired. I'm so tired of trying to combat this voice in my head. And I was like, Lord, I don't know what it's going to take, but I need to be healed from this. And then in September of 2021, I get this email, and I also suffer from FOMO, fear of missing out. And my plate is always fuller than full, right? But I got this invitation that if you are a life coach, there was this opportunity to participate in this positive intelligence coaching program. And it was a 7-week coaching program. And a couple of my friends that I really look up to and admire invited me to be a part of it with them. And so I said yes. And in this program, uh, it helped me to realize how strong the judge was and how we all have the judge. And I'm not going to go too much into it. If you really want to know more about this, Cheri Miller, who also took the program, she's going to be talking more about it when she does her program. But in about a year ago, I decided that I was drawing a line in the sand and I was not going to let this critical judge in my head win anymore, that I was going to literally like end it. I was going to recover from the imposter syndrome. And so I signed up for the Positive Intelligence Mastery Program. And in it, they had us do this uh, visualization where we actually gave the judge in our head voice. And so I'm in my bedroom and we did, a whole contemplation, and then started to, like, say out loud what the judge said to me. And I, like, got into, like, who he was and started saying it louder and louder to what it's been in my life, my whole life. And, like, as I'm saying it, I'm literally picturing somebody out on my front lawn hearing this and calling the police because they think somebody is being abused, right? I crumbled on the floor and I'm sobbing, like, oh my God, I have been letting myself be a victim of this my entire life. And then I had this, like, moment of clarity that, like, I was allowing this to happen. And I went back to the work that I'd done with the Power of 10. And I decided that I was not going to let the judge in my head be my persecutor anymore. He would be a challenger, and I would be open to what he had to say, but it was not going to be the final word. And then doing that work and really unplugging it. And a lot of the work of positive intelligence is literally about rewiring our brain. That since the beginning of time, right, we've been in fight, flight, and freeze mode. And that there's, in our prefrontal cortex, we just need to, like, rewire our brain to go into the positive because we've done that to survive. Well, we're not being chased by saber-toothed tigers anymore. We don't need the same resources that we had in our brain before. Now we need the executive functions of our brain. And doing this work, and it's literally 2-minute meditations is really what it is to rewire your brain. It is the most powerful work that I've ever done and that I get to share. And And so doing that work, then the next thing I came across, the book Mindset by Carol Dweck. Now, I've known this book forever and ever and ever, and I didn't need to read it because it's talking about a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Well, I know what a growth mindset is, right? A growth mindset is somebody that wants to learn. I am a sponge. I love learning. And a fixed mindset is people that think that they already know everything. So they're already fixed. Boy, was I wrong. When I literally sat down with this book and, oh, I lied. When I stood up, and I do audiobooks, so I listened to the book. What I realized is that a growth mindset is people that believe that they're learners and that they want to learn. And a fixed mindset is somebody that believes they're supposed to know everything. So when I would try something once and I would fail at it, I would think I was an idiot or I wasn't good at it or I can't do this. When the truth of the matter was, I'd never done it before. Right. And so being able to give myself permission to not know everything and to just take a breath and let myself take baby steps. My daughter, she read a book, and it's actually the Global Leadership Summit. I'm going to forget his name, the guy that started it. The pastor, his daughter wrote a book, and I think the topic or the title is actually called, I Guess I Hadn't Learned That Yet. What a concept. My daughter stepped into corporate. She'd never had any corporate position before in the pharmaceutical marketing industry. And she made a huge mistake. And her boss called her on it. And she was like, yeah, I guess I didn't learn that yet. Could you get somebody to like actually train me on that so that I don't make this mistake again? And he was like, oh my God, where did you come from? That is the most refreshing response I've ever heard, because we tend to like, right, feel ashamed and guilty and makes excuses or blame somebody, or instead of just owning, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I didn't learn that yet. And maybe I was supposed to, but I didn't. And so can you show me? And so being able to have that as a new way of looking at things has been absolutely profound for me. And so the question is, and was, and has been like, what do you want? Right? What do you want? What is that internal critical voice trying to stop you from doing that you want? And a lot of times we won't even let ourselves answer that question. We know what we don't want, but we don't even know what we want. We're so busy doing and being what everybody else thinks we should be, right? And just trying to like stay fit with everybody around us and not get kicked out. And yeah, that whole story, whatever it is that we never really put voice to, it just like runs us. But when I got really serious about like, what did I want? The first thing I wanted was to stop getting in my own way. Can I please stop getting in my own way? I wanted to be the healthiest version of myself I could be. I wanted to own my finances. I wanted to publish my books. This book, so Seeds of Joy, I actually published in 2013. I thought it was 17, but it was 2013. But I never let her have the light of day because there were so many stories. I didn't want people to think that I thought I was the shit. It was stupid, blah, 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 blah. And so when I was getting ready to publish Messages of the Monarch, there was something so strong on me that said, stop, you can't publish this until you give her own day in the sunlight. And I'm so grateful I did, because like the messages that I've gotten from people of the introspection that they've been able to have for the first time in their lives that they never knew how to do has been really, really, really powerful. Messages of the Monarch, I've been working on since 2017. I had her ready to publish 4 times and I got shut down. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And so it was so my passion to like step into letting these 2 babies, right, be birthed. What I really want is to transform my community. I really, really am on a quest to do that. I raise monarch butterflies. I've done that for a long time, since 1999. And it was actually something that I grabbed onto when I was going through my divorce and really struggling and depressed. And the things that I've learned about monarch butterflies, especially, I'll share that in the next section, but I really wanted to be able to transform my community. And then the last one is I have like never been in a healthy, real relationship. And I've done so much work on myself. Like Cheri's been like on this journey with me, Cheri Miller, for like a very long time. And like once I get my babies published, then I'm going to be ready like to work for the relationship thing. So I'm saying it out loud to a whole group of people here. So you're my witness. So so having heard all of that, right? I want to just give you a couple of minutes for yourself to just like contemplate like what's your internal dialogue? What are you saying to yourself? What's the story you're telling yourself? And what do you really want? Hopefully you jotted down some stuff that you can go back to later that'll remind you and that you'll make the time to just do this contemplative, reflective work because it makes all the difference in the world. So the next part of it is to make peace with yourself through understanding. And for me, the key was to get help, literally to get help, because in and of myself, the most dangerous place I can stay is in my own head with myself. And one of the most powerful gifts that Brene gave was the suggestion to like tell on yourself, just tell on yourself. The story I'm telling myself is. And I have to be honest with you, my mind makes up the craziest stories, right? I thought they were real. And literally for years, I believed them. And so I would play small, thinking that I like said the wrong thing or did the wrong thing or stepped on this person's toes or what was I thinking or blah, 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 blah. And Brene gave me the courage to actually go back to the person and say, the story I told myself about that is this. And I just wanted to check it out with you. And if it is, I'm really, really sorry. That wasn't my intention. And 100% of the time, 100% of the time, it was lying. The judge in my head was lying. It wasn't even true. None of it was true. Now, what the gift was given to me by that was that it did open up a dialogue for like, no, actually, what was really going on was this. It's like, wow, right? So what it did was it helped me to have deeper relationship with people by showing my vulnerability, by just going and telling myself, because before that, it made me crazy. So the first suggestion is just who in your life do you trust that you can share the story I'm telling myself is this? Somebody. Now, some of the people that I rely on, and especially, when I in January, I literally drew this really thick line in the sand. I was like, I'm going to be 60 years old on May 27th. Who do I want to be when I step across that line, right? How do I want to like do that? And so I doubled down. I mean, on everything. One, I had gotten last year, I got an incredible health coach that helped me release 45 pounds because it doesn't serve me anymore. Now, I did not lose it. So do not ever say when you release it once and for all, it's released. I am not, because if you lose something, you have to find it again, right? I ain't finding that. Right? So yeah, there's some days when I think that like I am finding it again because like, when you get into the emotional eating thing, but because I'm working with a health coach and I've practiced these and I've gotten into this routine, like I now like live this healthy lifestyle 90% of the time. The other 10%, right? I'm free to just take care of my emotional self because emotional eating is one of my things. Yeah, just as a funny side note, the health coach at one point, she said, I was going to have pizza. And she said, you could just like practice by having a couple of pieces of pizza. And I started laughing so hard I was snorting. It's like, oh, no, you don't understand. I can't do that, right? If I'm doing pizza, I'm eating the whole dang thing, right? I can't do a couple of pieces, right? Same thing with ice cream, right? People make fun of me. If I want ice cream, I'm not going to go get an ice cream cone. I'm going to go to the grocery store and get a half a gallon of ice cream. And that's my dinner. I'm full. I'm either all in or not. So, I started working with a finance coach to help me like to once and for all, like I like just kind of like lived, I kind of had a budget, right? But I always had enough money at the end of the month, but she taught me how to forecast for the next month and to plan my life. And I was like, my brain can't do this. For like 3 months, I fought her on it. And then the switch flipped, and I'm starting to, and the whole reason for that was that I believe that my creator wants to bless me abundantly, but only when I'm responsible with what I'm given. And so I was like, okay, how do I do that? And so working with her has been profound. I got a publishing coach, Mary Helen Conroy. If you even ever want to write a book, she is so incredible. She's out of Madison, Wisconsin, and she's literally my guardian angel. And then I got a life coach. So, and I decided that I needed somebody that would hold me accountable to all of this and help keep me centered so that when I crossed over into being 60, I could check off all the boxes, right? And so it was a little bit of an investment, but the one thing, literally the one thing, if I could like encourage nothing else, is that when you are willing to invest in yourself, it is tenfold given back to you. There's something about this like universal voice that says, when I'm worth it, when I'm worth investing in, then like things start to happen in a whole different way. It always makes, it's funny because one of the things that I wish I would have had coaching on was getting my master's degree. Right. So I'm in this position. Uh, my administrator, she had gotten her master's in business management. She was like, you really need your Cheri. There's so much you don't know that you don't know. And so I went and got my master's in management. There are so many incredible master's degrees that you can get on this earth, right? And I like struggled through it every single moment, thinking I was doing it to make my job better, when organizational leadership, right? There's so many other things. But coaching cost me less than one master's class. Just one. And I had to get like once you start taking them, you can't stop till you get to the end. So the idea of having a coach to like help you make sure that the path that you're on is the one that serves you is priceless. And we've only got Charmed a few more months. Ashley and Cheri are the two most incredible coaches. My whole staff has had them. I've had Cheri as my coach. She's still my coach. Who am I kidding? But we have this mutual thing. But just to really strongly encourage you to be willing to invest in yourself. Um, and even in the beginning, like for me, books and the library and book clubs and podcasts and YouTubes and webinars, there's so much to be able to do. But being willing to do that work is absolutely priceless. And then there's 12-step groups. And somebody that I sponsored shared with me, there's this group called Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. I don't know about you, but I don't know of a single person on this earth that doesn't fit in that category. I mean, we all come from some sort of dysfunction at some point in our lives. And it's the most incredible group. And they have like online meetings, and they just started one at my church. And, just to learn principles to be able to like clear out our internal clutter and live on purpose. And it's just so amazing to me. So pausing again, here's the next question. What crazy next step might you take to do what you've always wished you could do? All right. Hopefully you got some really good nuggets to move forward with. So when I was working on my book, Seeds of Joy, I came across something that was in the book, The Inner Game of Tennis. And it was a poem called The Rose. And I actually got permission from the author, Tim Galway, to change it to the zinnia, to be able to put in my book, Seeds of Joy. And I just want to share it with you. It says, when we plant a zinnia seed in the earth, I'm just going to share with you this one little zinnia seed. Right? We notice that it is small, but we do not criticize it as rootless or stemless. We treat it as a seed, giving it the water and nourishment required of a seed. When it first shoots out of the earth, we don't condemn it as immature or underdeveloped, nor do we criticize the buds for not being open when they appear. We stand in wonder at the process taking place and give the plant the care that it needs at each stage of its growth. See, the zinnia is a zinnia from the time it is a seed to the time that it dies. Within it, at all times, it contains its whole potential. It seems to be constantly in the process of change. And yet, at each state, at each moment, it is perfectly all right as it is. To me, that's like the core for us, right? And what's crazy about zinnias is that one zinnia flower bud, which is what I thought I was, um, didn't really have any purpose, anything. And it broke open on soil. And in each flower bloom is an entire packet of zinnia seeds. It's amazing to me that like this one zinnia seed will go on for an eternity with millions and millions of blooms. And I feel like that's like what's in our spirit. We have so much to contribute when we can call out the judge in our head, when we can stand up for our sacred self, for our inner self, to do the work that we are put on purpose. Actually, have the wrist bracelet of purpose, because there is so much when we can tap into our purpose. There is nothing that can stop us unless we let it. So yeah, so I just want to take a couple of minutes, and is there anybody that would like to come off mute and share thoughts, ideas, questions? What I say to my board, does anybody have comments, concerns, questions, or kudos? So I have to prod my board a little bit, right? Anybody have anything they want to share? JJ.
So first, let me say thank you. I've known Cheri for a long time. And what I learned was we had some people in our lives in common. And that opened up a whole new door. But I haven't read these books. So I'm going to read Cheri's books. Um, when I was a young Cub Scout, we sold seeds in the neighborhood. And these packets of seeds were always, zinnias were in that collection. And I have a spot in my garden that needs some flowers. I'm changing out some things in the garden, so I'm putting zinnias in that spot. So,
Very cool. Thank you, JJ.
so thanks for your comments this morning, and thanks for your willingness to share your vulnerabilities.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to dovetail all of that because I was going to start with being thankful for sharing your vulnerabilities as well. There was so much that you shared that was that resonated with me. And the last question that you had posed about what we were going to do next, it was validating to hear your journey because one of the steps that I want to take is to continue to ignore those doubts and believe in myself some more, because sometimes I tell myself that, but am I truly believing myself? I was at an event this last Friday and I didn't know anyone, and I'm like, I'm going to connect with people and have a good time anyways. I asked a total perfect stranger to take a picture with me, and then other times I just went behind the board and just put my camera down, let the video roll, and just did different poses. And I said, I'm going to enjoy myself, get to know as many people as possible, and I'm not going to doubt myself in the space I take up. So thank you so much for being vulnerable. I wanted to give that gift back by sharing of myself as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Matthew. Okay, so the next event you have to go to, bring me with so I can like witness you and and just so you know, I am a Great Laker. I Great Lakes Credit Union. So yeah, that's my credit union. So thank you so much, Matthew.
You know what, I want to add on based on what Matthew had said, and Cheri, you too. You're talking so much about the judge in your head that we all have. We all have that judge in their head and that imposter syndrome. Like you said, could be 90% of us that have that. And yeah, that's one of the things that I want to do is open up that vulnerability and to share. And it goes back to what Matthew just said, is I want to have fun. So why are we standing in our way and not allowing ourselves to have that fun? Let's go for it.
Amen. I love that. And I have gone for it in crazy ways. So 3 summers ago, I actually bought a motorcycle. I hadn't ridden in 20 years and I took it around Lake Michigan. Then 2 years ago, I did the Camino de Santiago where I walked across Spain. Last year, I hiked the Grand Canyon in one day. I mean, like I'm getting really good at doing crazy things. And once the judge is like out of the way, it's almost scary that like we can actually do whatever we put our mind to, right? When we can overcome that. So yeah, so thank you. So so I guess my final question for you is like what resonates with you and why? What's the story you're telling yourself that you want to challenge or rewrite? And who in your life can you tell on yourself with? So Wiley's just going to drop those in just as final questions, like what really resonated with you to capture it, and what are the next steps that you want to be able to take with that? I don't want this call to end without just saying out loud, holy smokes, are there some powerful programs coming up? It blows my mind when I was looking at the lineup, right? I want to give a shout out for my friend Marcos, who is doing the program on the Law of Addition on May 22nd. And then Anne Marie Triso, her One Simple Question, Dr. Best on resilience. And a must attend if you want to know more about positive intelligence and our saboteurs and those things. Cheri Miller is doing Unlocking Leadership Potential. She will further debunk our internal critic on that program. And then immediately after hers is one of my favorite humans, Nicole Harris, is going to be teaching about AI and so much more. I mean, every one of the speakers, I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So now here's what I had thought. I had thought that like I could actually go back and watch them later. I did not know that if you miss it live, you miss it. And so strongly encouraging you, put these on your calendar. People pay a lot of money to hear some of these guys coming up. It's crazy. And so make sure that you don't miss it, because once you miss it, it's gone. And so and then the last thing they're gonna say it, I'm just gonna say it too, is make sure you complete the attendance sheet so that you can get the handouts and the questions and the Zinnia poem and all of that with that. And so yeah, are there any last thoughts or questions or comments or anything anybody wants to share?
Cheri, I want to know, what does May 27th look like from start to finish?
That's such a yummy question. So I don't know. I was freaking out the other day. I called my mom and my sister and I'm like, what the heck was I thinking? This is the dumbest thing, right? Blah, 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 blah. And so
that judge was speaking real loud.
I'm telling you that he gets really, and so I went to my mom and my sister and I asked them for help and they were like, all right, would you just not even worry about it? So at noon, I'm doing a Facebook Live book launch. And then from 3 until 5, I'm having a get together at my house. I'll email me. I'll give you my address. I would love to have you there. Ashley's been there a couple of times. The first day I actually worked with Ashley, I had to run home for something. I'm like, I know we're supposed to meet, but can you just jump in the car with me and we'll just go and do it together? So, but yeah, and just to say out loud, my last book launch, I was supposed to have it on a certain day, and then there was something happened. The Amazon, something happened, and they said the book wasn't available, so I had to redo it. And it was literally, I know it was my internal spirit's way of building the muscle of like finding my voice, because like I literally on that day want to crawl under my desk and just like want the day to hurry up and get done, because there's still the voice in my head always said, don't get too big for your britches. And it was so fun. I found out recently that like we are literally made of stardust. Like our DNA has stardust in it, right? And so I changed my mantra from "don't get too big for your britches" to "britches. I ain't got no britches. I'm stardust." And so just to like keep like doing that rewiring, and it's a constant practice. I truly think part of being human is believing this lie that we're caterpillars and we can't see, right? And it's just an illusion. That monarch butterflies, they don't spin anything. There's nothing magical about it. They release 5 layers. That's how they get to their wings. And so every time we're willing to release these layers of story and limiting beliefs and, you know, all the other stuff that keeps us small, when we're willing to release those, we do get to our wings and we can fly. And that's what Messages of the Monarch is all about. So if it intrigues you, I would love to have you join me on May 27th and buy the book from midnight, May 27th. Right. I've got 24 hours to have the most books purchased to make it a #1 bestseller. So I would absolutely love your support, and reach out to me if you have, like, if you start to read it and you want to share anything. I would love to continue the conversation, because we've got so much work to do, everybody. We really, really deserve to be able to find our wings and fly. No more excuses. So thank you.